yours. It fits with the glove. It was the best. It was the best. It was the best. Somebody came up. I don't think you say that actually.
Can you stop spamming all of us for the broadcasting for the entire.
There's a lot I want to share with you here, but
Nobody wants to share with you.
nobody wants to share. I don't know.
All right, I'm sorry, guys.
I could struggle with it. Hi, everyone.
Okay. Just a couple of items for all of you at the top. We tried to wait until after the backgrounder on the India bailout as well, so hopefully you were able to listen in on that. Today, as part of the fight to help Americans deal with high costs, the Vice President is announcing new actions to protect consumers and lessen the burden of medical debt on American families. She'll be joined by administration leaders, including
She looks like shit.
Sarah, CFPB Director Chopra, and OMB Director Young. Medical debt is now the largest source of debt in collections, more than credit cards, utilities, and auto loans combined. But it is not just a financial issue. It can have negative health effects too. Studies have found that Americans with medical debt are more likely to avoid seeking additional medical care than those without debt. Getting sick or taking care of loved ones should not mean financial hardship for American families. That is why the administration is going to hold medical providers and debt collectors accountable for harmful practices, reduce the role that medical debt plays in determining whether Americans can access credit, help over 500,000 of low-income American veterans get their medical debt forgiven, and inform consumers of their rights. These actions come on the heels of the President's April 5th executive order on access to affordable, quality health care coverage. Also wanted to note that today our administration launched a rural infrastructure tour to double down on the President's unwavering commitment to building a better America where rural communities thrive. The White House released a rural playbook to help state, local, tribal, and territorial governments in rural areas unlock the historic investments from the President's bipartisan infrastructure law. This playbook offers a what, when, where, and how to apply for funding under the law, making it easier for rural communities to plan and compete for federal resources that create good-paying jobs and generate economic opportunities. Secretary Holland is kicking off the tour in Boulder County, Colorado today, and during the month of April, cabinet members and Biden administration officials will travel to dozens of rural communities to talk about how we are unlocking bipartisan infrastructure law investments and federal resources to make sure they reach rural areas across America. This tour includes the President's trip tomorrow to Menlo, Iowa, outside of Des Moines, to discuss the administration's actions to lower costs for working families. There, President Biden will make an announcement on actions to reduce the impact of Putin's price hike and build America, a better America with investments in rural communities from the bipartisan infrastructure law. And welcome back, Corrine.
What is up, everyone? Please take a second to hit that like button. The more likes that we get in a short period of time, the more people the algorithm will bring into the chat to come hang out with us and see what's going on. So please hit that like button. Let me know how you're doing, and happy freedom.
He's visiting a state that he lost during the 2020 campaign, and he's going to a county that was even more voting Republican last time. I'm wondering if that will make it harder for that area to receive his message politically.
Well, I think the president is not making this trip through a political prism. He's making this trip because Iowa is a rural state in the country that would benefit greatly from the president's policies, including the policies that he'll be talking about tomorrow on his trip. When he was running, I think many of you heard him say and convey he wanted to be the president for all people, whether you voted for him or not. And this is certainly an example of his effort to do exactly that.
On another topic, looking at the bilateral, how much did the president push the prime minister to limit Russian energy imports and arms, and what was the response?
Well, we'll let the Indian government project their response, or not their response, but their readout of the call. I would say that energy imports are not banned. They don't violate our sanctions. We certainly recognize every country is going to take steps that are in their interest. At the same time, on this call, what the president did is consistent with what our Deputy National Security Advisor, of course, did during his visit just a few weeks ago, was to make clear what the impact, of course, of our sanctions would be. We expect everybody to abide by those. And while India only imports about 1 to 2% of its energy from Russia, we also made clear, and the president made clear, that we would be happy to help them in diversifying this as well. In terms of and we also made clear, I should say, that the president also made clear that he does not believe it's in India's interest to accelerate or increase imports of Russian energy and other commodities as well, which is something we certainly convey to other countries. In terms of military actions, we have not made a decision about the waiver under CATSA. In terms of how much it was discussed during the call, I'd have to get more details from our national security team on that specifically.
She's having a hard day today.
This is already facing the threat of legal challenges from some gun groups. Given those threats, are you bracing for legal challenge, and when do you realistically expect to see this new rule take effect, given those challenges?
Well, let me first say that this rule, or the intention to put this rule forward, was announced, as you know, some time ago. And there was a lot of response to it, 250,000 comments, which is, of course, a lot to go through. What this is a reflection of, and why the president is, of course, confident or hopeful about our ability to ensure we can continue to implement it, is the fact that ghost guns kill people too. Ghost guns can be purchased online. People put together these kits. There are not background checks that are required. They're not under the same, they're not also required to have serial numbers, which makes it more difficult for law enforcement to track when these have an impact in crimes. So, of course, the president is confident in any executive order and the legal authority that he puts forward. But what's important to note about the announcement he is making today is that this is a rule that is supported by law enforcement. It is a rule that will help address what we know is a rising component of gun crimes across the country, which is the use of ghost guns. And to the president, it was important to take a step to address that.
Going off of what you just said, please tell us that these guns are as simple as clicking on the internet and snapping parts together. Will there be, can you say, this administration say there will be fewer shootings as a result of what the president is doing today?
Well, that's always our hope and our objective, right, is to reduce the impact of gun violence. As we've seen violence go up, we have seen a huge, vast majority of that, nearly 3/4, as a result of guns. And ghost guns, as you said, Cecilia, are used by simply clicking and ordering online, ordering a kit that people can make in their homes. And that is one of the reasons why this action or efforts to take more steps has been supported by a range of law enforcement officials. From the International Association of Chiefs of Police said that ghost guns are, quote, increasingly used by criminals and terrorists. We saw Governor Larry Hogan, of course a Republican, as you know, call Maryland's bill banning ghost guns a, quote, positive step as we seek to stem the tide of violent crime. Brown County, Wisconsin Lieutenant Matt Ronk said ghost guns are, quote, a new threat. And there are a range of police leaders and officials across the country who have conveyed how important both these components that the president is announcing today are to addressing the threat of ghost guns.
Hey, Jeff, just to follow up, did the president get a commitment
Or
from Prime
to,
Minister Modi not to accelerate or increase imports of Russian energy?
I'll let Prime Minister Modi and the Indians speak to that. Again, it's 1 to 2% at this point in time. It is not, they import 10% from the United States. It is not a violation of any sanctions or anything along those lines. It was a constructive, direct conversation, but I will let them speak for themselves.
And secondly, the president said he wanted to meet Prime Minister Modi in Tokyo on or about May 24th. What else can you tell us about this trip?
The president is looking forward to going to Asia at some point, but I don't have any more details at this point in time. Clearly, he's excited since he talked about it today.
And lastly, any details about this announcement tomorrow in Iowa? Is it related to ethanol?
I don't have any more details at this point in time. As you all know, we are taking a range of steps to reduce the price of gas, to move us toward a long-term, more clean energy economy, but I expect we'll have more of a preview for you later today. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. Back to the conversation with Modi. Did the president urge Modi to speak out more forcefully against the Russian invasion?
Well, we have seen the Indians do exactly that more recently, as they did as it relates to the horrific photos that we saw around Busha. We've seen them take steps to provide humanitarian assistance and a range of assistance, but it is something we always encourage leaders to do, to speak out, to be vocal, to ensure they're on the right side of history. But this was a constructive call. It was a productive call. It's a relationship that is vitally important to the United States and to the president. I would not see it as an adversarial call.
And then I understand you want to let the Indians speak for themselves, but was the president seeking a promise from Modi that he wouldn't look to increase oil purchases from Russia?
Well, we are, the president both conveyed that we are here to help them diversify their means of importing oil. Again, the imports from the United States are already significant, or much bigger than the imports that they get from Russia. And we, of course, the president conveyed very clearly that it is not in their interest to increase that. But beyond that, I would let the Indian leaders speak for themselves.
And then finally, I'm wondering if, last night Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky told 60 Minutes that the Ukrainian military has recordings of conversations between Russian troops talking about committing atrocities that would qualify as war crimes. Wondering if anyone in the U.S. government has been able to listen to these intercepts or whether the U.S. government has similar intercepts.
Well, I don't have anything to confirm on that front from here, but what I would reiterate is something Jake Sullivan said last week, which is that as we're looking to provide data and information to war crimes investigations, of which there are a range of options currently underway, the OSCE, obviously the ICC, the Ukrainian special prosecutor is also gathering information. We're going to provide any data and information we can, and we're going to encourage other countries to do exactly that. We've already called a range of these actions we've seen war crimes. That is important, but there's also going to be an investigative step where all of this will be fed into. That can also take some time.
If this ended up at The Hague, is that something that the White House would support?
We're not going to prejudge which format or forum that it can take. There are a range of different options that history has utilized, whether it's the ICC or the OSCE, and basically an international fora is probably the appropriate forum, but we're not going to predetermine what that looks like. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jen. Does the U.S. intend to return its diplomatic presence to Kyiv?
That is, of course, our objective over the course of time, but we're going to have to assess when it's the right time to do exactly that.
Is it considering moving back into Ukraine, potentially to Lviv, sooner